Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Across the Bifrost. Today, we are going to be tier ranking almost every Thor villain. There are 66 Thor villains on this tier maker list that we found. And you know what? What the heck? We're going to rank all of them on a tier list for you. This is our first time doing a tier list, so Eric and I are going to do our best. Eric, what do you think about our tier list? We're gonna get rocking and rolling with this.
When you told me that there was going to be this tier list of Thor villains, I said, okay, yeah, right. It's going to be like the 12 main ones. It's going to be like the obvious
Everybody
ones. Let me
knows.
take a closer look at this. When I opened this up and took a closer look, I was like, dang, okay, there's some deep cuts in here. So I think this is going to be a lot of fun going way back in the Thor lore to take a look at some of these villains that a lot of viewers might not even realize are part of the canons.
Oh yeah, there are deep cuts aplenty in this list. And also, for those of you that maybe don't know all the deep cuts of Thor villains, don't worry. Loki's going to be here, Hela's going to be here, Malekith is going to be here. All your favorites are going to be here, but you may learn about a few of them that you forgot about or you didn't even know existed. So we are going to do this list in the order that the tier maker had it. So I've forgotten which creator made this list, but they put together a fantastic list with the names of the character next to them. And we're just going to be honest with you. If we don't remember this character, probably going to go in the D tier.
That doesn't bode well for their rankings, then yes.
But if it's a villain where we're like, hey, they're like Thor stories wouldn't be Thor without so-and-so, probably going to be an S tier, A tier. So we're going to have fun with this, and we're just going to get going, Eric. Let's start with the very beginning, the Stone Men from Saturn. Where are we putting Korg in his basic form?
The Stone Men from Saturn. Now, they're obviously in the very first appearance of Thor, so that makes it feel kind of nostalgic. They do make a comeback. I think it was in either the Len Wein or the Jerry Conway run, but really not all that important, not all that lovable or memorable. I mean, they're kind of cool, but they don't really have any character development or interesting things about them other than just, hey, they're rocky aliens.
I mean, yeah.
I'm gonna just right out the gate put them as like a C tier. There's probably worse, less memorable, less important villains, but they're definitely not in the middle.
And truly, if they weren't in the first appearance of Thor, they would probably be a D tier. And if people didn't know who Korg was from the MCU, like, let's be honest, the Stone Men really aren't probably going high on the list. So next we have Professor Zaxton. He is an early Thor villain, and he's responsible for creating... Well, you know, we could probably do these next two together. Professor Zaxton and Zaxton's android, the duplicate of Thor early on in Journey into Mystery.
This is when, androids and robotics and technology are all the rage, and it seems embarrassingly simple to just, I made a robot that's as strong as Thor. Like that should be way harder than this to just whip it up in a lab. You know what I mean? Like
it can lift Mjolnir and stuff, like whatever. Sure.
And this is, of all the different Thor androids, this isn't even my favorite one. Yeah. So by that metric, I would say these are pretty low down there. I'm going to put Professor Zaxton as a D tier, and I'm going to put his android also as a D tier.
Yeah,
sorry, they're both Ds.
That feels fair. We have another early Thor villain up next, Mad Merlin, and it's a guy who is impersonating Merlin from the Arthurian legends. This isn't even Merlin the Wizard. Like, again, you talk about the worst or less good versions of characters that are better later on. This isn't even the best Merlin in Marvel Comics.
Wait, but I know who you're talking about now, because I know from the cover he's got the full Merlin robes. But what is this thumbnail of? He looks like a court jester genie.
I'll be honest, I don't know. But for me, he is the definition of D tier.
it almost seems comical and ironic
Yeah.
that it almost seems like, oh, surely you wouldn't have this fake Merlin as a serious villain, would you? No, yeah.
Gosh. Next one, I do remember this villain, Molto the Lava Man, Hercules. This is an early one where I think maybe the Avengers also faced off against the Lava Men at one point, in an early Avengers issue. Do you remember the Lava Men, Eric?
I know he's got a cover appearance
Yeah.
because I, for the longest time, thought this was just a really weirdly drawn Surtur. I was like, why does Surtur look like a dude with like hair?
In brief.
So
Like, why?
didn't leave a huge impression on me. Early Thor, cover appearance. They're going to be at the very bottom unless you've got a reason to kind of bump them up a little bit.
I mean, they're definitely, of the four that we've already viewer put in the D tier. See, we can be critical about our favorite superheroes. I would say the Lava Men are by far the ones where I'm like, hey, if we're gonna do this, like, they are the tippy top of the D tier. But that's still not saying a lot. Now, Eric, next one, we're finally getting to like a Thor villain name, is Ymir, the progenitor of the frost giants. This is not Laufey. We'll get to Laufey in a little bit, but Ymir, the kind of the other side of the Surtur fire and ice dynamic. What do we think of Ymir?
Ymir is obviously fairly powerful, very important in Norse mythology, but I'm going to put Ymir in B tier simply because of the expression Ymir's bones.
Ymir's
bones.
I
just love when that gets said. And so this is the guy. You could have that. You can't have that expression without him. So that makes him so much more enjoyable than Stone Men from Saturn and from all the ones in the D tier. And he makes a couple appearances. Yeah. He comes back later on in the 90s when there's like this sort of like modern retelling of Ragnarok, and it's supposed to be this like motley crew, huge epic battle. But I would say a solid B.
Yeah, I think Ymir is also one of those villains where you could do a lot more with him than they've done.
Yeah,
like, you could do you Eric, you know how much I love giant kaiju stories. You could do a kaiju story with Ymir because he is a monster on the level of a Surtur. And when that kind of brings us to the next Surtur, the King of the Fire Demons. I mean, we're clearly in the A-B tier, like, at least, right? Possibly flirting with S tier.
So this is the first one that's really going to kind of test our criteria here, because Surtur is absolutely synonymous with Thor stories.
Yes.
Is like the end. He's the end game in every version of Ragnarok. He's like, he always has this takedown with Odin. I think there's been like maybe 3 different times around. They sort of retell that cycle of the story where it's Odin versus Surtur. I love the Surtur Beta Ray Bill stuff. I don't think as a character, he doesn't have much of an arc. Like, he doesn't do anything. He's sort of just like a stand-in for like a force of nature and or a narrative element. So he doesn't he doesn't even really have that many lines. He doesn't like reflect, and we don't see a lot of motivation.
He's more of an
that I recall
than he is a character.
He's a big bad, but he's not like, a character that we are learning a lot about. So that might keep him out of S tier. He's certainly either A or S. And I would give it to S if we look at like importance, but as a character, we don't really even know that much about Surtur.
I think A is very, very fair. And I would put him at the top part of A. If there was an A1, he would be probably an A1.
For sure.
So we're gonna kind of go back to some more classic early 60s villains here with King Cobra and quickly after him his old running mate Mr. Hyde. And we saw both of these gents just make a reappearance in Immortal Thor. So let's do Cobra first. Cobra also kind of a Captain America-ish villain because of the Serpent Society, but we're gonna apply only the Thor stuff here. King Cobra, where do we want to put Mr. Voorhees?
I mean, he's a very neat character. It's very creative. I love that they have him slithering around buildings in like the 60s and stuff. And he does get a bit of a glow up and some love, especially in the current Al Ewing run. That might bump him up a little bit just because we've seen more of him recently.
Right.
I was gonna say C tier, but he might be creeping into B tier because we've just been spending a lot more time with him recently.
You know, see, I feel like having the Stone Men there at C is really making me question what that C tier is going to become.
Do you ask yourself this? Do you want to see more stories with him in it compared to Stone Men from Saturn? If the next issue had a villain on the cover and you're like, I can't wait to read that, is it Stone Men from Saturn or is it King Cobra?
I mean, if it's against classic Thor, Cobra gets mopped every time. Fine. We'll put Cobra in B tier. And I feel okay about that. He would be for me like kind of bottom of the B tier, right on that line, like we just talked about.
I think, yeah, we're in agreement. They're right in between there. So.
What about his old running mate, Mr. Hyde?
Hyde is a little bit more one note for me. I think as we're going through this, I'm learning that, I really value the characterization and I really want to feel something or learn something about the character. And Mr. Hyde is, again, he's very one note. He's a rage monster, right? And that's neat, but he doesn't do anything else, really. I mean, so I would put him in C tier.
So here's where we may disagree. Because I think in terms of a challenge to Thor, Hyde is way more of a challenge than Cobra is. Because
if you're looking at how big of a threat they are, that's one of the elements for sure. But
we should have
actually, that's a really good point because
Cobra is like he's just a guy that's really bendy. Like Hyde actually has an enhanced he's like a lower powered Hulk in that I'm not saying he's Bruce Banner, like person that's listening and is a Hulk fan. I'm not saying he's Bruce Banner, but Hyde has that strength ability that where he can at least hold off Thor. Like we saw that at the end of Immortal Thor, he holds off a bunch of different Asgardians for a little while, not forever. But I don't know. I would like to put Hyde in.
But Cobra has the fun tech. He's got the darts and he's got the mist and he's got the different.
It's so hard for me to. I would like to put Hyde in B tier.
Okay. All right.
I'll give you a veto. Like we'll just trade off vetoes and say, no, Ryan.
If you ever feel strongly, you can be like, Eric, hell no.
Ulick does not get to be an S tier villain. That's not happening. What about, so actually speaking of rock trolls, what about King Gyrodor of the rock trolls, Ulick's old boss?
Ulick's old boss. And at one point in Thor lore, wasn't it that the trolls forged Mjolnir? Yeah. They switched at some point when it was created by trolls to created by dwarves. And I think it might have even been forged by Gyrodor at one point in the telling.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't care that much about him. He doesn't do a whole lot. We don't see him a whole lot. I would put him handily in C tier.
Yeah.
Probably not a D tier. Probably a good C.
He shows up multiple occasions. He is important to the stories that he's in because he's usually the king of the other opposing side. And we remembered things about him.
Yeah. So that's a good clue that
C tier is renamed as we remembered a little bit about them.
Yeah. I love it.
The next one, I feel like she goes straight to S tier. Hela, the goddess of death.
I will easily agree with you because, and this is, I think, really helpful having them side by side. She is so much more interesting than Surtur. And being interesting is I'm giving a lot of points for that. Yeah. So I think she's interesting. She's Also kind of like a force of nature. She has a lot of great, really somber moments in early Thor comics where she's like, oh, I don't delight in this. I just need to do this. And, dogs bark at her and firemen give her dirty looks on the street. And she's like feeling very lonely. But then she reminds herself that, no, I'm Hela, I'm a badass, and I do what I do because I need to.
Yeah.
So, and then I think then also the excitement and anticipation around the summer event.
Right.
We're not saying that we're making her S tier for things that haven't even happened yet.
Yeah.
But we're certainly anticipating and really excited to see her get some more spotlight because we think she deserves it.
Yeah, totally. And we also we've seen her be a threat to Thor before.
Like Faz mentioned, she's really the big bad of the entire Walt Simonson run.
Yeah.
She gives Thor the
curse
where he's fragile, and she's really kind of the main antagonist that entire run.
And I mean, she also confronts Loki at times. She's taken over so many different like side death realms. She is also just a base level immensely powerful.
Yeah.
She is a Marvel-wide level threat when used correctly, which we believe Al Ewing will do that in spades during the Queen in Black.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, not enough great things to say about Hela, the goddess of death, and the current Queen in Black. So next, we got our first Red Scare villain, Comrade Executioner, from the second appearance of Thor, also Jane Foster's first appearance. Straight to D tier, Eric?
I'm going to say straight to D tier. This one, we don't need to waste a lot of time on him. For a second, I thought it was the same guy that comes back when they like invade Washington, D.C. and Fire Lord is there and they're like marching across a bridge. But I think you're right. I think it's just that really early, like second issue.
Yeah. Next, I mean, it's Amora the Enchantress. She's super powerful. She is a love interest of Thor's throughout his comic history. So how confident do we feel? Where do we want to put Amora on this list?
She's a very interesting character. Sometimes she's really more of an anti-hero and sometimes she's a straight up villain. She's complicated. She's interesting. My instinct is telling me between A and B. I don't know if I give her full A. I do like her. My case for Amora in the A tier is she's currently way more interesting than all three of the characters in the B tier. She is more ingrained in Asgardian lore. She's connected to more characters, and her power level, while not on the level of a Surtur or a Hela, her power level is higher, and like you said, she is more complex. She actually has stories. She does shit. She does stories. Yeah, exactly. She has things going on. She has opinions. She has feelings. She's spiteful. She's manipulative. She's fun to read. And for all those reasons, I think, we can put her as a solid A.
Yeah. Now, speaking of the Enchantress, we can't talk about the Enchantress really without talking about Skurge, the actual Executioner. So
not Comrade
Executioner. Where do we feel confident putting Skurge? I mean, he's been a villain a lot, but also he is probably the holder of a top 5 Walt Simonson moment. So where do we want to put him? The one who stood alone at Yallerbrew.
Well, okay, I'll start, and you just tell me where you're feeling. I think that clearly he is a beloved character. He's one of those characters, kind of like Beta Ray Bill, that has a clear cult following.
Yeah,
he is disproportionately liked compared to how often we see him. We don't really see him all that much, but people have this place in their heart for him. I think that, to me, he is definitely more entertaining and more interesting than the B tier, but I think he's right about in the A tier with Enchantress. Because I think not just because of their love interest, but I think about them kind of in the same way where, Executioner, he's played on both sides, but you never really know where you stand with him. There's always this hint of like, well, is he like when he like had the blood axe forged?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what are you doing with that? Or is there a little bit of a self-interest there? So he's honorable, but there's also this thread of you never quite know, and that keeps it interesting. So I'm gonna say A tier. I think
Yeah.
he's great.
I think, I think he's on the lower end of A tier, but because of his just like he's been around for so long, and that he's not as prevalent as like a Loki or a Hela, but he has storylines where he is vital to it, and really for that Simonson moment alone, I feel like he deserves
Yeah.
to, because that
King Cobra doesn't have a moment like that. King
Yeah.
Cobra doesn't have a moment that gets talked about through all of Thor comics forever.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. When those panels where Skurge stands alone on the bridge so that everybody can get off the bridge, I get goosebumps when I read it. And none of the characters in B tier have a moment like that. So let's put the Executioner in the A tier. Now we're gonna kind of do some dumpster diving here for a minute. We're gonna go with Skag, which just gross. But such a nasty.
What a name. What a
And what a
freaking
looker.
name, huh?
Whew. Face only a giant mom could love. What do we feel about Skag, Eric?
So he's what? He's a storm giant.
Yeah.
And so we don't have a lot of storm giants. He doesn't do much. I'm almost thinking a D tier.
Bingo.
He really doesn't inspire a lot of fond memories for me. So
We're still gonna put him in front of the Red Scare Executioner villain. In the D.
Or are you doing some subtle horizontal prioritizing?
Yeah, I guess maybe.
Well, because they're not even going to all fit on the screen if we've got so many D tier people.
Exactly. This is gonna get interesting. Let's go with the Gray Gargoyle, who is super powerful, but also his most famous moments come in an Iron Man comic. Like he is a Thor villain. He debuted in Journey into Mystery, but where do we want to put Mr. Gray Gargoyle, Eric?
I think the recent Gods of Midgard storyline are just making this really easy because I just think about him on such the same level as Cobra and Hyde now.
Yeah.
So I think just an easy B tier.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think we're kind of developing like the B tier is kind of like we know them. We know who they are. They've maybe been reinvented a little bit, but they're not forgettable. We'll put it that way. They're not forgettable.
Yeah.
The next one is the Phantom whose touch means death, Eric. I know you know everything about this character, because I sure as heck don't. Get our research assistant.
Let me quickly, as I'm quickly Googling, quickly typing here.
Does not bode well for the Phantom.
It does not bode well if we're like, who's this person? What is this?
Clickety click.
Yeah. Right on. Was this character even in? Is this like a Tales of Asgard character that I think they had like one appearance?
You know, probably. I mean, I kind of forgot. Like Skag is probably a Tales of Asgard villain. A lot of these.
Yeah. This guy looks like a gust of wind. I don't think we need to spend any more time on him. Let's just drop him in the B tier.
D tier, still ahead of the Comrade. Okay, we're getting into some pretty recognizable names here for Thor.
Here we go.
We have King Laufey, the father of Loki. If you've ever wondered where the Laufey son comes from, this guy right here. And Laufey is more often than not the leader of Jotunheim, the king of the frost giants. Not currently. Currently he's off the board. But Eric, Laufey, definitely a name we know, and has his moments, and probably most famous for being Loki's dad.
Yeah. Yeah, he's an important character. He gets referenced a lot. He's actually dead for a good portion of Thor's entire comic run, because that is why him coming back in the Jason Aaron run is so important, because he really wasn't around for decades, I believe, unless
Yeah.
I'm just blanking on his appearance. And so he makes a pretty good impression. If we were doing this ranking back in what, like, I probably would have been like, oh yeah, that like King Laufey, like it's more fresh on my mind, and he's a big player in the Jason Aaron run. But now that's kind of settled down a little bit. We really haven't seen him
Not
since.
really.
So I feel like it's easier to put him in the B tier. He's up there with Ymir. He's maybe a little bit more interesting than Ymir, because he has more personality. But yeah, I think a B tier is
Yeah.
probably fine.
Yeah. Definitely that classic, like when you need to reintroduce Thor to somebody, have him beat up some frost giants, and you can have your Laufey stand-in who's leading them against Thor. But we know who did it first.
Yeah.
Next, we have one of my favorite Thor villains, Crusher Creel, the Absorbing Man. And Absorbing Man is been around for so long. He's fought so many different villains, or he's been a villain for so many different heroes, namely for Thor and the Hulk. But some people might know him more as a Hulk villain, but the history that Crusher has with Thor is extensive, Eric. So how do we want to rank him as a Thor villain?
Okay, you can push back if you want, but I'm gonna try to make a case for him as an S tier Thor villain. Yes, I'm not joking. He does not belong in the B tier. Those are a bunch of chumps. The Absorbing Man, for when he was first introduced, is probably the most imposing Thor villain, because at the time he could not only absorb the properties of materials, but he could absorb Thor's worthiness and his like strength of character. And so it was like you literally could not strike a blow, because if you touch him, he immediately then has your same power right back at you. And the entertainment value alone makes this guy rocket up the charts. There are so many moments when he absorbs, the properties of the cosmic winds, and then he's like, "Oh no, I turned into a cosmic tornado and went to a different dimension." Like, it's such a fun character. Half the time he's just getting picked on by Thor, and he just wants to, steal some diamonds or buy an engagement ring, and they assume he's robbing the place. That kind of stuff.
He's a victim of circumstance in the situation.
You might think he's an A tier, but I think that for me, the entertainment value mixed with in the right hands, he actually is, a legitimate Thor threat. I think he creeps into S tier.
I would be willing to give him top of A tier, but the one thing I think that holds Crusher back is that he has not had
his drug addiction. Because I think he's taking care of that. He's doing much better.
I wasn't even going to go there, but I just think that he's not viewed as a threat to Thor. Like you were saying, his first impression way back, like, he's fantastic. It's the first multi-part story where a villain actually feels like a threat that's not Loki. I have a problem with putting him up in S tier, because we know some of the other names that are going to go up there, and I just don't think Crusher belongs next to them. Next to Amora and Skurge and Surtur, it makes too much sense to me. I may have to use one of my.
That's fine. I see what you're saying. If we are building the Mount Rushmore of Thor villains, you're saying he's not up there.
No, if we were held to like having 4 people in that S tier, Crusher doesn't get close for me.
I mean, we could have 100 people in the S tier. There's no number that is a right number, but you're saying the relative comparison is one of the important elements, and they need to be right at home with the other S tier villains, and this seems like it wouldn't fit.
I would put Crusher above, in terms of like power level, I'd put him above Skurge, because I think his power is probably the most untapped of most Thor villains, because it can do so much. And throughout the years, like you said, they did explore how to use Crusher's power, both for comedic purposes, but also for Thor to be legitimately thrown off for when he fights them.
I think they also went to make him a sympathetic figure too early because we didn't really get to see him at full villain power except when he was first introduced. I mean, if he came back and was like, let's give him the big Malekith glow up, right? Let's give him 30 issues. There's so much that we could figure out with his powers. I mean, really interesting stuff, but okay, for now, A tier.
Next,
that's fine with me.
We have Fenris. Very, very important in Norse mythology. I will say this: the Marvel equivalent of Fenris, not as important, but does show up in a few prominent places. Where do we feel like putting the big bad wolf?
He is right at home in. I would say he's like a Ymir to me. He's big and mythological and cool, but he doesn't say much or do much.
He's usually a lackey, so it's not like Fenris gets like the glow up of being, you know, having a motive and a complicated backstory and, you know, machinations on their own.
He gets to be he gets a human form at one point, I think, right at the very end of the is that at the very end of the Jurgens run or the very end of the JMS run? I forget.
You know what? Both sound plausible, and I have not gotten to the end of Jurgens, so it's a great question. Do we feel confident going on to Yag the Invincible, Eric? I mean, everyone knows who Yag is.
Everyone's favorite.
Loki. They're all here for the Yag of it all.
As I Google,
it's not good. The clicking is a terrible sign.
Yeah, let's see. Okay, yep. That confirms. We don't know who this person is. I mean, okay, Naheim, the Invincible Slayer. Okay, if I've read every Thor comic and I have to Google this person, that does not bode well. I think we can stick.
Welcome to the D tier, Mr. Yag.
Oh look, the D tier expands as we add more rows of these D lists.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the next one though, definitely no slouch. We have.
Is it even a villain though? It's a.
So, I get that we have to qualify this with the Destroyer, but we know what the Destroyer has been used for. We know how much of a threat it is to Thor.
Yeah.
For me, also the Destroyer, because of the first Thor movie, the Destroyer is kind of in a space where if you showed somebody a picture of it, they'd be like, oh, that's a Thor guy. Like they wouldn't be able to maybe articulate it to the nerdy, obsessive extent that we can, but they'd be like, oh yeah, Thor. I would put the Destroyer in A tier.
I think so. Yeah. I think A tier is perfectly good. It's, you know, you could make a case for it being powerful enough to be an S tier, but that there's more to being a better character than just power level. Like it's mega powerful, right? But it's also like it doesn't have any good like lines or like dialogue because it's just, you know, a possessed entity. So.
Now, Eric, we are, for those of you watching, we're about to get to a real big one that may be pretty obvious. But before we do that, Eric, how do you feel about the list so far? How do you feel about our tier rankings? How are we? We're creating kind of a pretty good rubric as we go. But how do you feel about it right now?
I feel amazing. I was worried that I wasn't going to we didn't really prepare a whole lot. We were like, oh, we'll just talk through it. And so I was kind of concerned that we weren't going to find something that makes sense. But so far, I agree with every single placement on here. And I think we are finding out some things as we filter through how it shakes out. I think that's probably why this format is so popular. Like it's actually really useful.
We're just processing. And so far we have done 22 of these villains we put into this tier ranking.